Before I start this video, I would like to thank each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel and helping it get as far as it's come in the last 3 or so years that I've had this channel. It is a great accomplishment of mine, and once again, thank you very much for subscribing and tuning in and watching me show the world what I love. So this is a clock collection video, and this will be a first part because this will be a two-part series just because I want to film what's at my primary residence and what I have in storage at the moment. So the first clock is the famous Bulova grandfather clock. Well, not really a Bulova because they make watches and they don't make they made very few grandfather clocks that I've seen. This has a Hermle movement in it, has moon dial, and it actually works now. The hour wheel was replaced because it was plastic and had broken teeth, so I replaced it with metal ones, and this clock has served me for about 8 years now and has worked perfectly, although it may need an overhaul very soon. We move over to the next clock, which is my Ridgeway bracket clock with an Ergos movement, Winchester chimes. I replaced the movement in this one. I found a one that was in better condition on eBay and decided to work with this one. This one is an unusual anniversary clock that has battery operated and is controlled by a hairspring. And that's all messed up, and I don't know how to get that one in working order. Next, we have this tradition mantle clock with the Hermle movement and triple chime with Westminster, St. Michael, and Whittington. Next over here, we have a mid-century wag on the wall clock, bim bam chimes, and they're all gonna start going off here in just a few minutes. We'll hear it all. Beautiful piece. Turn off the lights out here and turn this on over here. So this clock is a Howard Miller. I forget what the model number is. I think it's a 612-462 wall clock with a Hermle movement in it. Works great. And by the way, almost every clock out there except the wag on the wall is from early to mid 70s. What I have right here is an English Fusee gallery clock. Warwick, I believe, is where come Warwick, England, and Kennett, I believe, is the department store, whatever, that sold this piece. Upside down for you. It has a Fusee movement in it, as you can see right there. And that's all really for that guy. All working. First clock, when we enter my room, you can see there's a lot more stuff than there used to be when I last did a clock collection video. So this is a Centurion 35-day Korean wall clock. It works beautifully. What we have next is a I wouldn't say this is an anniversary clock, although it looks like one, but it obviously isn't. Controlled by an electric motor made by, has not named Bar on it. Bar Manufacturing Corporation. Does not work. I got this from my aunt, it was in my aunt's possession, but it was my great-grandparents before they passed. Back there is a Seiko quartz clock that my great-grandma owned. Right here is a Seth Thomas early mantle clock. This one is a 30-hour. I believe it's quite older than the rest of what I have. Works great. Has alarm feature, or used to. The alarm was robbed out of it, as with most of these clocks. German alarm clock, non-working. Chinese 31-day. It can either be a mantle clock or it can be hung on the wall. Works great, but these Chinese Korean clocks aren't really the best of quality. Back here we have an Aileron 31-day wall clock. Works pretty good. Just a Seth Thomas spare movement. I think it's a regulator. They're all gonna start going off out there. Anyway, this is a 30-hour mini kitchen clock. I believe, judging by the hands, I believe it's a Gilbert, but it doesn't say anything. There's no markings on the movement. This one works great. This one also had its alarm robbed out of it. And here we have a French crystal regulator clock. One works great, except for sometimes the hands bind, and I don't know what is causing that. Next, we have a French clock. Very beautiful design. Sadly, does not work, however. And after that, we have a very beautiful French clock. Cast iron, I believe. This one I can't say for sure if it works because there is no pendulum, no suspension spring, and no pendulum rod. But what does concern me a little bit is the fact that the hands sometimes are really hard to move and sometimes really easy. So likely the spring or the pin that gives it pressure is cracked, usually in this case. Very interesting design. The lady, Egypt, Greece, Rome. And those are all the French clocks for now. Right here we have a cast iron Ansonia mantle clock. I believe this one's about turn of the century. And here we have a Schatz 1,000-day anniversary clock. Well, not really an anniversary, just a 1,000-day clock. Has a massive mainspring barrel to compensate for the 1,000 days that this clock runs. This one keeps amazing time and works great. This one right here is a miniature Franz Hermeli & Sons anniversary clock. These are both from the 50s, and they both work great. This one is just a parts anniversary clock that I have. You see on the dial, there's no hands on it, although I do like that it has like a diamond dial. This one, I don't know what the brand of it is, although it works, but it is a parts clock for now. You can see the base is very corroded, and it's missing. Well, the suspension block is not missing. It's just off of the clock at the moment. But those are my anniversary clocks. Well, not quite. This is a Kundo oval 400-day clock. This one I'm doing as a little project. I'm waiting for a new suspension spring to arrive because this clock runs way faster than it should. I mean, it was gaining like 3 hours a day. Moving on to these Hermeli clocks. This is a Hamilton bracket clock from the 90s. Has a Hermeli movement in it. Works just fine. And this one down here, it says Keininger or Keininger on it, however you pronounce it. Although it has a Hermeli movement with a balance wheel, which is really unusual. I don't know why that is. Whoops. Next clock is a Seth Thomas parlor clock. This one works great. Has a beautiful sound to it. Next up is a American E.N. Welch manufacturing company. I believe that was the predecessor to Sessions. This is a stone clock with a Brokaw escapement. Very nice piece. This next clock is a carriage clock by Jungens. I believe it's the Joker model. And this is a French Brokaw escapement. I wish I knew if that one worked, but it does not have the pendulum with it. This is the Ansonia porcelain clock that I have. The movement is out of the case right now because I am going to service this once I get a chance, once I'm not burdened with everything else. And this is a Howard Miller Samuel Watson bracket clock, triple chime. Works great. A Simplon Swiss pocket watch with an alarm mechanism. A Hamilton pocket watch from 1922. A Gruen mid-century watch. And in this box, set this aside for a second. A Gruen automatic precision watch. This one sadly does not reliably run. And this is just a Timex that my Mom owns. On the bottom of this shelf, we have an astrology clock. Electric, works pretty well. Back here we have the movement to the Howard Miller Piedmont that my grandma owned, or this Howard Miller 610-202. It'll get reinstalled in the case once I have a chance to figure out how to get it back in, because it's really unusual. This clock right here is a Jaeger-LeCoultre, I believe is how you pronounce it. This is an Atmos clock, which runs on the atmospheric pressure, and there's a little bellow in there which self-winds the clock. Amazing timekeepers, although I do not know how to work on these because that is a completely different science working on one of those. And there's a Seth Thomas Tambor mantle clock. This one is a Ansonia Tunis model during the turn of the century. Another Seth Thomas mantle clock. Missing the glass. This one is before 1900 because it's got a movement where the escapement is on the back of the case, or the back of the movement, I should say. Cast iron Gilbert mantle clock. Modern Ridgeway wall clock with a Hermley movement. Malthu, I don't know how you pronounce it. Wall clock from the 40s or 50s, I'm guessing. Dutch Zandam wall clock with a bell strike. These are pretty nice. Classic Manor quartz clock with a moon phase. And the moon phase stopped working a while back, actually. An unbranded 8-day novelty clock. This one is a New Haven. Not all of these work, by the way. And this one in particular doesn't, and neither does that one. Ansonia kitchen clock with the alarm still in it. Ansonia unusual dial. I'm sure this was like a special order clock. Alarm was robbed out of it. Parts, Gilbert Bim Bam movement. Rusty mainsprings. Broken verge, broken escape wheel. Parts movement for a reason. Gilbert novelty clock. Ansonia novelty clock. Unbranded novelty clock. New Haven carriage clock. That was my great-grandmother's. And behind all those novelty clocks is another French clock, as you can see. A Seth Thomas banjo clock. A Waterbury mantle clock in poor condition. Bought it cheap on eBay. There's the dial to it. A Latham time recorder company time punch clock, electric. Move this out of the way. A Sylvania radio electric clock, works. A Seth Thomas electric bracket clock from the 70s. A Seth Thomas Simsbury mantle clock with a Seth Thomas 124 movement in it. This is my Fusee cuckoo clock. You can see the Fusee controls the striking, but not the time, which is strange because the whole idea of a Fusee is to have consistent timekeeping as the mainspring unwinds. There's the front of the clock. Behind all this is a mid-century German Bim Bam mantle clock. It works, but it is missing that minute hand. Ridgeway dwarf grandfather clock mechanism, works good. A non-working modern Seth Thomas ship's bell with Hermley movement. 2 Regula cuckoo clocks. Some more novelty clocks back in here. An Elgin travel clock. Equity travel clock. A Finney Walker alarm clock with Oh What a Beautiful Morning from the Oklahoma play. Another alarm clock. West Clock's Baby Ben. An unknown alarm clock. And that is the collection, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you on the next video. Good night, everyone.